Taiwan says China is planning to close airspace north of the island later this week. The half-hour restriction is shorter than the 3 days Beijing originally proposed after Taipei protested. Taiwan says China has notified it that a no-fly zone will be imposed on the morning of April 16th because of falling objects from a satellite launch vehicle. Tensions in the region are running high following a controversial trip to the US by Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-Wen. Beijing claims the island as Chinese territory, which Taiwan strongly rejects. Right, well, for more on this, DW correspondent William Yang joins us from the Taiwanese capital, Taipei. William, great to see you. So, what have Taiwanese defense officials said about the no-fly zone?
So the only thing that they have said so far is that they suspect it's related to an aerospace activity that's going to be conducted by the Chinese. And they didn't offer much more detail about it. But experts here in Taipei have told me that basically they view this as another gray zone tactic that Beijing has pulled out of its toolbox to basically show Taipei and neighboring countries that it has the capacity to disrupt the air traffic in this very busy flight route, and at the same time showcasing that they have other means other than military means to impose a potential blockade around Taiwan. Because as we know, this is a very tricky spot that also, I think, coincides with Taiwan's air defense identification zone in the north. And at the same time, it's also the flight information region for Taipei in the north. So it's just a very strategically important spot that China is somehow deciding to launch a satellite, which the experts say it's just uncommon.
Now, William, China announced the end of drills, but their vessels are actually still around the island and are now, of course, we have this no-fly zone announcement. So are they really over then, the drills?
So while the official encirclement-style military exercise that started on Saturday has ended on Monday, but their naval vessels continue to operate around the waters near Taiwan. The state media reported today that some of their naval vessels are conducting regular patrols and at the same time also practicing their anti-missile and air defense as well as anti-submarine drills. And I think this frequency, even though the actual military exercise has ended, is just showcasing again that China is potentially going to start increasing the frequency of this kind of military activities and to try to show and warn Taiwan about future engagement with high-level officials from the United States or other foreign countries.
Let's turn our attention to the economy now. William, China has launched an investigation on Taiwan's trade restrictions on Chinese products. So tell us a little bit about the reaction from Taiwan.
So Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council, which is in charge of cross-strait relations, has basically come out and said that Beijing's move is not going to be productive to the bilateral trade and also cooperation. And at the same time, the Agricultural Council has also said that the original import restriction is in place because they want to protect and ensure that Taiwan farmers' interest is not going to be infringed or sacrificed because of the competition coming from China. And so far, I think the Economic Ministry is deciding to consider what kind of response is proper for Taipei. And coming from China, they view this as a long-standing infringement of the bilateral trade agreement that was signed about 10 years ago. So they think that it is time for them to respond. But looking at the timing of the entire investigation's timeframe, a lot of the experts are suspecting that China is intentionally timing this just right around the same time as Taiwan starts to prepare for the presidential election in January 2024. So they view this as another response to for Beijing to express its frustration about Tsai Ing-wen's meeting with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy last week in California. And I think Beijing, again, is showing the wide range of tools and its responses that it has on its hands, and it's just warning Taipei that they have to be very careful about the next move that they are going to make leading into the next election.
Thanks, William. DW's William Yang in Taipei. Well, DW's China expert Clifford Coonan is here with me in studio and has been following this story closely. Clifford, great to see you. So, actual combat. Now, is this a power move, or do you think Beijing is actually planning an attack?
I think it's a power move. I mean, it's scary language. It's designed to unsettle people. It's designed to frighten people. I don't think Xi Jinping is going to invade Taiwan unless he's confident that he'll win. And I think in the absence of an assured victory, which I don't think it is assured, he's not going to do it. But what I think the Chinese have learned recently is that they can do a lot with their wallets. They can do a lot with their ability to convince other people in different parts of the world that they need China's money more than they need to stand behind Taiwan. So I think what we're seeing is a lot of very tough rhetoric. We've seen these drills. I mean, they've ended the drills, but they're still there. The ships are still surrounding the island. So I think power move is probably the best way to describe it.
Now, Clifford, tell us more about this 30-minute airspace closure, because it was originally meant to be longer, right?
That's right. It was originally supposed to be 3 days, and which the Taiwanese were horrified at, because this is one of the busiest areas of air traffic in the world. And they were very, very, obviously very disturbed by this. It was also going to affect other countries such as South Korea. Everyone thinks it's related to some sort of satellite launch. The Taiwanese protested very vociferously about this, and they've reduced it to 27-minute window on Sunday. So I think the plan is to basically they've cut it back, but at the same time, it's more of this saber rattling, more of this escalating pressures, and it's not a good indication of how things are in the Strait of Taiwan.
Let's talk a little bit about economic matters, because China's launched an investigation into Taiwan's trade restrictions on Chinese products. What's this all about?
Well, basically, again, this is another power move. What they're talking about, they're trying to stop dumping. They're saying the Taiwanese are selling things that are too cheap into the mainland market. They've done these before, but this is the first time they've done 2,455 items, which is quite a lot. So it's the first time they've done that many. And I think, again, it's part of this trying to show that China has the economic muscle to take on Taiwan, trying to show Taiwan how much it needs the mainland, because trade links are very, very strong between the two, despite the political tensions. So I think it's very much connected to that whole picture.
So, considering everything we've just been talking about, is China tightening its grip then?
I think so. I mean, it's been a strange week for the Taiwanese. We had Emmanuel Macron, the French president, visiting China, in which he said that he didn't want France to be drawn into a crisis driven by American rhythm and a Chinese overreaction. And I think the Taiwanese are quite surprised by this. The Americans are quite annoyed by this. And so for the Taiwanese, they feel in some way that they don't quite have maybe the support they might have expected from Europe, from within Europe. Now, some of that's been rolled back since, but definitely tensions are heightening, and there's a much more confused picture now in terms of the alliances about who's backing Taiwan, how far people are prepared to go to back Taiwan. And this is something, obviously, that China has been very careful, very keen to orchestrate from the beginning. So all in all, I think it's been a poor week for Taiwan in terms of how it feels about its security and its options going forward.
Thanks, Clifford. Clifford Coonan, DW's China expert.